Hello, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into the world of true crime, but with a twist. We're taking a step back in time, back to the 90s, a decade that was as vibrant as it was volatile. It was a time when the world was changing rapidly, and amidst all this change, there were some astonishing crimes that left an indelible mark on history. These were crimes that left us in disbelief, that made headlines across the globe and had us glued to our television screens. But these weren't just sensational stories, they were real events with real victims. What makes these tales even more intriguing is that they were all eventually solved, thanks to the tireless efforts of investigators. These cases had investigators working tirelessly to bring justice to victims and their families. Now we dive into our first case. Our first case is the Oklahoma City bombing that shocked the nation in 1995. On a seemingly ordinary April morning, the tranquility was shattered by an explosion that decimated the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. A chilling act of domestic terrorism, this blast resulted in the tragic loss of 168 lives, including 19 children, leaving a scar on the nation's psyche. The man behind this horrifying act was a decorated Army veteran named Timothy McVeigh. Motivated by a deep-seated animosity towards the federal government, McVeigh sought revenge for what he perceived as overreaches, specifically the tragic events at Ruby Ridge, Idaho, and the Waco siege in Texas. McVeigh, alongside his accomplice Terry Nichols, meticulously planned the attack. They packed a yellow Ryder truck with a lethal mix of ammonium nitrate fertilizer, diesel fuel, and other chemicals, parked it outside the federal building, and then ignited the fuse. The resulting explosion was heard and felt miles away. In the immediate aftermath, first responders and ordinary citizens alike worked tirelessly, pulling survivors from the wreckage. But the question on everyone's mind was, who could have perpetrated such a devastating act? The answer came swiftly. Just 90 minutes after the explosion, McVeigh was arrested during a routine traffic stop for driving without a license plate. Subsequent investigations led law enforcement to Nichols, and the pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. McVeigh was subsequently tried and convicted on 11 federal counts, including conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction. He was sentenced to death and executed in June 2001, a grim end for a man whose actions caused so much pain, loss, and heartbreak. Nichols, on the other hand, was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. He remains incarcerated to this day, a living reminder of the terrible consequences of extremism. This devastating tragedy remains one of the worst domestic terrorist attacks in US history. It serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of hatred and the enduring spirit of a nation that refused to be broken. Next up is the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski. This Harvard-educated mathematician turned recluse is infamous for a terrifying campaign of terror that lasted nearly 2 decades. From the late 70s to the mid-90s, Kaczynski sent out a series of homemade bombs via mail, targeting individuals associated with modern technology. His actions were driven by a deep-seated hatred for the industrial technological system. The bombings claimed 3 lives and injured 23 others, leaving a lasting scar on the nation. His reign of terror spanned 16 years, and the investigation to catch him was one of the longest and most expensive in FBI history. What made it even more challenging was Kaczynski's isolated lifestyle. He lived off-grid in a remote cabin in Montana, far from the reach of modern society. The breakthrough in the case came in an unexpected form, Kaczynski's own words. In 1995, he sent a 35,000-word manifesto titled Industrial Society and Its Future to several media outlets demanding its publication. The manifesto detailed his views and motivations behind his bombings. It was this manifesto that led to his downfall. Recognizing similarities in the manifesto's ideas and writing style, Kaczynski's brother David approached the FBI, suspecting his sibling might be the Unabomber. This crucial tip led the FBI to Kaczynski's isolated cabin, culminating in his arrest in April 1996. Kaczynski was charged with 10 counts of illegally transporting, mailing and using bombs and 3 counts of murder. He pleaded guilty in 1998 and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The Unabomber's reign of terror was finally ended thanks to an extensive FBI investigation, illustrating the determination and tenacity of law enforcement in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges. The Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric, shocked America in 1989 when they murdered their wealthy parents. This chilling crime took place in the quiet neighborhood of Beverly Hills, California, shattering the illusion of safety and privilege. The brothers, aged 21 and 18 at the time, were living a life of luxury, thanks to the wealth of their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez. However, beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect family lay a dark and twisted plot. On the night of August 20th, 1989, Lyle and Eric brutally murdered their parents with a shotgun. They then went on a spending spree, lavishing themselves with expensive cars, watches, and even a restaurant, all funded by their parents' fortune. The brothers' lack of grief and extravagant spending raised suspicions, eventually leading to their arrest in March of 1990. The motive behind this gruesome act was financial gain. The Menendez brothers stood to inherit a fortune estimated at $14 million. But their greed would not go unpunished. The trial of the Menendez brothers was nothing short of sensational. The courtroom was filled with shocking revelations, including claims of physical and psychological abuse at the hands of their parents. Despite their attempts to gain sympathy, the jury was not swayed. After a long and tumultuous trial, Lyle and Eric were found guilty of first-degree murder in 1996. They were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Their sensational trial ended with their conviction, serving as a stark reminder of the consequences of greed. The Menendez brothers thought they could commit the ultimate sin for the ultimate prize. But in the end, they traded a life of luxury for a life behind bars, a chilling testament to the fact that crime doesn't pay. In 1994, Susan Smith claimed her children were kidnapped by a carjacker. This statement sent shockwaves across America, triggering a nationwide search for the alleged perpetrator and the two innocent victims, 3-year-old Michael and 14-month-old Alex. The image of a distraught mother pleading for the return of her children gripped the nation, sparking a wave of sympathy and concern. Smith spun a tale that captured the heart of America. She described a man who, at gunpoint, forced her out of her car and drove away with her children still strapped in their car seats. The story of the carjacking was so detailed and convincing, it triggered a manhunt for the imaginary carjacker, and the Smith family became household names overnight. As the days turned into weeks, however, inconsistencies began to emerge in Smith's account of the carjacking. Investigators, growing suspicious, subjected her to intense questioning. Under the immense pressure, Smith's facade began to crumble. She finally confessed to the unthinkable. There was no carjacker. In a desperate and tragic act, she had driven her car into John D. Long Lake with her children inside. The nationwide search ended in heartbreak as the bodies of Michael and Alex were recovered from the murky depths of the lake. The nation was stunned. The sympathetic figure of a grieving mother turned into the monstrous image of a woman capable of murdering her own children. The public's sympathy quickly turned to anger and disbelief. Smith was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. Her trial was a media sensation, attracting global attention. The defense argued that she was a troubled woman with a history of depression and suicide attempts, but the jury was unmoved. She was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Smith's case remains one of the most heart-wrenching crimes of the 90s. The Susan Smith case is a chilling reminder of the depths to which human beings can sink and the unimaginable crimes they can commit. It serves as a stark illustration of the dark side of human nature, hidden beneath the surface of ordinary life. The murder of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman in 1994 captivated the world. It was a crime that sent shockwaves through society, involving an iconic sports figure, O.J. Simpson, and the brutal murder of his ex-wife and her friend. On the night of June 12, 1994, Nicole and Ron were found dead outside Nicole's condominium in Brentwood, Los Angeles. Both victims had been stabbed multiple times in a crime scene that was both horrifying and baffling. the spotlight quickly turned on O.J. Simpson. As the prime suspect, he was soon facing a murder charge that would lead to one of the most watched trials in history. The trial was a media circus. Every day, millions tuned in to watch the proceedings, drawn in by the compelling cast of characters and the mounting evidence against Simpson. The prosecution presented a strong case, including Simpson's history of domestic violence, the infamous bloody glove found at the crime scene, and his DNA found at the murder site. However, the defense team, led by the charismatic Johnny Cochran, argued that the evidence had been mishandled and possibly contaminated. Their strategy worked. After a trial lasting more than 8 months, the jury acquitted Simpson of the murder charges. The verdict, delivered on October 3, 1995, was watched by an estimated 100 million people worldwide, yet the story didn't end there. In 1997, the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman filed a civil suit against O.J. Simpson. This time, the jury found Simpson liable for the wrongful deaths of Nicole and Ron, ordering him to pay $33.5 million in damages. Although Simpson was acquitted in the criminal trial, the civil suit verdict left many with the belief that he was indeed responsible for the tragic deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. This case remains one of the most controversial and widely discussed cases of the 90s. And there you have it, 5 mind-boggling crimes from the 1990s that were eventually solved. From the domestic terrorism of the Oklahoma City bombing to the serial bombings of the Unabomber, each case left an indelible mark on the decade. The Menendez brothers' unthinkable act of patricide, Susan Smith's tragic filicide, and the infamous case surrounding O.J. Simpson's ex-wife all serve as chilling reminders of the darker side of humanity. Yet they also underscore the relentless pursuit of justice by dedicated law enforcement teams. Each solved case, a testament to their tireless efforts to bring closure to victims and their families. These stories, while harrowing, shed light on the intricacies of criminal investigations and the quest for truth in the face of adversity. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more intriguing true crime stories. Thanks for joining us today.